Hi friends, my name is Therese, also known as Caffeinated Cast-Ons on Instagram and here on YouTube. Welcome to the Caffeinated Cast-Ons YouTube channel. This is where I share all my knitting adventures, my makes, what I'm working on, and of course I am caffeinated. I've been knitting for two and a half years. Excuse the extreme gloom. It is Sunday, January 14th. We are in the middle of like an 84-hour freeze here in North Texas. So I'm pretty sure it's 12 degrees right now, and it's gonna be like this, I think, through at least Tuesday night. So it is very gloomy and dark out. I have my coffee that I have in my little insulated mug. There's me and my dog. For those who are just joining, for January, I didn't make any, knitting resolutions for the year 2024 entirely. I started with just the month of January. For the month of January, I have two rules that I'm sticking to. The first rule is no new whips, with one exception, which I'll get to. And then the second rule is to no new cast-ons, which I have an exception to, which I will show because I will get to that today. And two is clear my needles, or just get down all my whips. So I have one finished object to show you, a new cast-on, some new yarn in my yarn stash, yarn library that I'll go over today, and then just kind of an update on what I've been working on this past week. I have one finished object from this past week, and that is my square that I was working on for my knitting class in this gorgeous green, very moody, love it. I finished my square. I did have class this past weekend, and I did not clear any other squares. I had 3 squares on the needles. Finished this square, so I still have squares from older classes that I still need to finish. But I was able to mark, let's see, that was square 6. So I was able to cross that off my knitting journal and put it down under my finished objects. And so with that one crossed off, I got down to 2, 4, 6 whips, but I actually need to add one. And let me write this down. So it's square 7 that I did in my class, which brings me to my new cast on. So there's not a whole lot to see. This is just what I cast on in my class. I learned a new skill this past week in class, and that is cabling, which I've always been very intimidated by cables. They just seem so scary to me, but there's really, I was making kind of a big deal over nothing. Really, it's just rearranging stitches, and I've kind of already done it. I realized before, a few years ago, probably about 2 years ago, I made I believe it's called the Hipster Beanie by Petite Knit, and that is a 2x2 ribbed beanie. And you start with a tubular cast on, and then you have to rearrange and set up your stitches to be in 2x2. And I realized that setup row in a tubular cast on to get everything 2x2, that was essentially cabling, because you're rearranging your stitches to start that ribbing. Granted, it's not like fully cabled or anything, like showing actual cables in the design, but the technical part is there. And I think for that, whenever I was rearranging, I actually just took the stitches off the needle, because you're just switching 2 stitches, their order. So I would just take them off, pinch, and then put them back on the needles in the right order. And I actually tried that, because this but this has far more stitches in the actual cable section. It's a thicker cable, so that was not as easy. So I will definitely be doing the rest of this with a cable needle. I have some cable needles that I got from Knit Picks. It's either Knit Picks or Cocoa Knits, I can't remember, but I don't know where they are. They're somewhere in a project bag. So I will need to look for those whenever I pick this back up because I need it. So I will be continuing working on this with an actual cable needle. So that is my new cast on, and this is an exception because this is an ongoing project. Like I've mentioned in past episodes, the whole class is making an Afghan, and each month we do one square. Later in the months we do 2 squares at a time, but it's essentially a year-long project. The class is broken up into quarters. So I'm about halfway done, but I need to catch up on my squares. So that was the new cast on. Although I only got 1 finished object this week because I was hoping to get at least 2 this week, I'm still making good progress on some of my other whips. So after I finished square 6 for my class, I focused on 2 of my socks that I had on the needles, and that was my 2 at a time socks and then my scrappy socks. The 2 at a time socks, so these are my 2 at a time socks, and I got to, I think last time I showed them I was on the heel flap of 1 sock, and I needed to do the turn, pick up stitches, heel flap, turn, pick up stitches, and get everything picked up and ready for gusset decreases. I finished through the heel turn and picked up my stitches, but once I started doing my gusset decreases, I don't know what happened, but my stitches got all out of order as I was working across the socks on my 1 long cable. So on one side, essentially, you're supposed to have the instep, and on the other side, you're supposed to have the gusset stitches that you picked up across the heel, and then the gusset stitches that you picked up. Mine were rearranged, and I don't even know how they got there, but it was a tangled mess, essentially, and there was not a way I could figure out to get everything back on the right needle. So I just took them off, and because sock 1 was okay, sock 2 is the one that had everything kind of rearranged. So I slipped sock 1 off of my 40-inch circular and just put it on regular 32-inch circular, and I'm working magic loop now for both socks. So these technically aren't 2 at a time anymore. I don't know if I'm gonna put them back as 2 at a time once I finish the gusset decreases and get back to my original stitch count. We'll see, but let me show you what I've done. So sock 1, I finished the heel flap, did my heel turn, and now I'm in the middle of I picked up my gusset stitches, and now I'm in the middle of decreasing back to my original stitch count. So made quite a bit of progress because last time I showed these, the heel flap was done. So I did the heel turn, picked up stitches, and we're decreasing. Sock 2 is about in the same place. Sorry, this is all tangled. There we go. Sock 2 did not have the heel flap done at all. So I did the heel flap, turn, picked up stitches, and now I am in the middle of decreasing here as well. So I think I'm going to finish all the decreases on sock 1 and then go to sock 2 and finish all the decreases there. This is still on the 40 cable, I need to find another sock needle because this is kind of annoying when you're just working one sock at a time. And then after I get back to my original stitch count, we'll see how I'm feeling. If I do want to finish them 2 at a time, I might just keep them separate though, because to me, I know it just kind of feels faster, even though I am working them independently. But that is the progress there. So I need to place a stitch marker or a progress keeper so I can remember what I am showing you last. So let's put that there. So this is where I'm going to be working from this week. And then I will do the same for sock 2. The second whip that I focused on this past week was my scrappy socks. This is my first time to do a scrappy style sock, and I'm still figuring out kind of what method I like for changing colors. If I like to do the weave and Steven method, which is weaving my ends in as I go, or if I like just leaving the ends loose and then going back at the end to weave them in. Both have their pros and cons. The weave and Steven does leave like a little bit of a bulkier join on the inside, but it's also like, I don't know, I don't have to worry about weaving in later. With the weaving in later, it is a bit loose on that ladder since I am working magic loop, and so I just have to keep making sure to pull that snug. And then I'll just have to remember to go in, weave in my ends after this is off the needles. Last week, I don't think I put a progress keeper on this, but last time I showed these, I think I was just joining right here after the second stripe. And I was a little uncertain how this was working up with these colors, but I love it so much more now that I've continued like another color section repeat. So the toe is one color, and these are actually 3 different colors. There's 1, 2, and 3. These blend together so well. I was a little sad at first and thought about ripping back and reordering the color order, but I actually really like how it blends together, and I like the thicker stripe between these like more pops of color. So I am a fan, and I'm actually going to leave it like this. I love how it's working up. And right now at this point, I finished the foot. So now it is time for the heel for this sock. I am only going 1 sock at a time with this one, just so I can enjoy it a bit more, since it is just straight knitting. It's just a plain vanilla sock. For this heel, I am doing a Fish Lips Kiss heel, which I'll really need to dedicate the time to, because I like doing the Fish Lips Kiss heel in one sit. I don't like to put it down and have to remember where I was, just because I don't have it memorized. I still do have to look at the pattern and making sure I'm doing it correctly, and I just don't want to mess up the heel. So I'll do this in one sitting. So my goal for these 2 projects for this upcoming week is to get through the heel and start the leg. And then for my 2 at a time socks, I'm going to finish the gusset decreases and focus on the foot. I feel like once I get past the heels of these 2 socks, they're gonna go more quickly, because then it's just straight stockinette for a good while until I get to the cuff in this one and the toe in the other one. So I would like to get at least one of those pairs of socks finished by the end of this coming week, and finish another square from my Afghan class. If I can do that, I feel like I'll be still in pretty good shape to get my needles clear by the end of this month. So feeling good there so far. I was a little discouraged. I only finished one object this past week, but I feel like I also made great progress on those 2 at a time socks, especially now that I kind of got them all straightened out. And with them being broken up into individual needles, I feel like my brain can actually focus on those better. As I mentioned, I had a class this past weekend at my local yarn store, and they put some Suburban Stitcher on their little clearance cart, and I couldn't help myself. I got some. So this is their sock, which is 75 superwash and 25% nylon. And this is the colorway Cosmopolitan. And I think why they're on clearance, I don't know if they're on clearance online on Suburban Stitcher, I imagine, but I think why she had a good bit on clearance at the yarn store is because these colorways are going to be discontinued, I believe. There was some others that I wanted. There was also some DK, but I just went with a single skein of this. Originally, I was going to turn it into another Musselburgh, but I also think this would make a very nice pair of socks. So I'm undecided because I already have this like hot pink Musselburgh. I just finished the yellow one that I showed in the previous episode. I also have a neon green. So I have a lot bright colored Musselburgh. So maybe my next one will be a more neutral color. So these will be either socks. This will be either socks or another Musselburgh. We will see. Non-knitting related section of the episode is what I am reading, watching, and listening. Reading, so this morning I actually just finished The Green Mile. I finally finished it. It was good. At first I was like, let's just finish this and get this over with because I was not enjoying the read. Mainly because I was not being consistent about picking it up. I just kept reading like a little bit at a time. So the story felt very slow. I was like, I don't get the point of what's even happening. But the last half, it all happens so quick, and it was good. Some of it can be hard to read depending on your reading preferences and just themes that you do or don't like that in a book. Because there are some hard topics in there. But I did end up enjoying it very much. If you've seen that movie, Game Night, at the end when they're playing charades, and he's like, how are we supposed to know that that's the Green Mile? And he's like, this is me at the Regal Cinema crying, as I assumed everyone did in the Green Mile. And again, I mentioned I've seen bits and pieces of the movie, but not the whole thing, and I didn't know what happened at all, but now I'm like, oh, I understand why there was crying. But yeah, it was good. I did not cry when I read the book, but I can see why people may have cried in the movie. That's like a whole different thing of just reading it and somewhat visualizing it in your head than actually seeing it. So I can imagine why there would be tears. I'm not sure what I'm going to read next. I do have kind of a big stack of to be read on my bookshelf. So not sure what I'm going to pick up next. We'll see what I'm in the mood for. Probably something a little bit lighter since that one was heavy, and before I finished that, I did read kind of like a darker suspense thriller mystery, so maybe we'll pick up something a little bit lighter. Watching, still making our way through Big Bang Theory. Me and my husband, that's like our show that we're watching together. He has seen it all the way through. I have not. I think we're in season 7 now. So still moving along. We watch like 2 episodes at a time, if we can, every night. So some nights we don't get to it, of course, because we have our son. So it just depends. I also picked back up How to Get Away with Murder. I am in the last season. I believe. I did see a spoiler though, because I don't know why I did it, but I was looking ahead at the episode descriptions and I saw a pretty big spoiler of something that happens. So I got kind of mad at myself and it made me not want to finish it, but I'm so close to the end. I'm just gonna power through and just kind of see how things like unfold to get to that point. So we'll see. Well, listening, I've still just been binge listening to the Drama Queens podcast. If you don't know, it is a One Tree Hill podcast that Sophia Bush, Hillary Burton Morgan, and Bethany Joy Lenz. It's a rewatch. They're rewatching it for the first time and go through, and it's so good. I've seen the show at least a dozen times all the way through, so it's good. I love it. Every episode I close out with my 3 simple joys. So here are my 3 simple joys for this past week. Simple joy number 1 is new coffee. I just got in a new bag of coffee grounds. I do the Trade Coffee Co. subscription, which basically you take a quiz on your coffee and brewing taste preferences, and they recommend coffee to you. You can change them out, pick whatever you want, how often you want coffee, your brewing method, all that good stuff. And I just got a new bag. I left it in the kitchen, otherwise I would show it, but I can't remember the roaster. But funny enough, the blend is called Cold Front, which is very fitting since we're in this freeze right now. But I just love having a good cup of coffee, and it was just so exciting to get my new beans this past week. Simple joy number 2 is routine. So I was off of work for 2 weeks for Christmas, and this past week was my first week back at work. So just getting back into a routine rather than kind of just sleeping in or not really having plans. I very much enjoy it. I love a good routine. I love things that are predictable. So just having that set times of when I know what's going to happen is very nice. Very much bringing me joy, helping me feel much more organized. And simple joy number 3 is high fives. My son just learned how to do high fives. So you just like hold up your hand and say high five, and he'll start like high fiving your hand. And it is so precious. Just like a tiny hand in your hand. It's the sweetest thing. So that has been such a joy. Just to continue to see him like grow and develop. It's very exciting. He is my first, so just soaking in all things new with that. That's all I have for this week. I hope you are staying warm in this winter weather that just about everyone is experiencing. I know it is far colder in some other places. This is very cold for North Texas. We had a very, very bad hard freeze and snowstorm a couple years ago in 2021. So we're all very kind of alert and on edge and nervous about this, especially since it is going to be days before we are above freezing again. So no plans for us this weekend. I'm just gonna find some pockets of time to knit today, kind of get the house cleaned up. I don't have off work tomorrow, but my husband does, so he'll be home. So just trying to get the house in order a bit and just kind of relax, stay warm, probably get under my heated blanket and knit or read today. And just see if I can make more progress on getting bees whips off my needles. So until next time, stay caffeinated.